Ford holding its inaugural Ford Pro Accelerate event in Detroit today. Joining us now from there, first on CNBC, is AT&T CEO John Stankey. Good morning to you, John. We've been having, I know you're talking a lot in Detroit about AI and jobs and the future. And I know you've sent out, we discussed, I think the last time I saw you, the famous note you sent out to your team. I'm curious right now in terms of where AI is inside of AT&T, how you're actually even thinking about jobs anymore.
Well, we're thinking that it's going to be pretty significant in how it changes how we work and operate the business and how we serve our customers. And if I go back and, think about maybe the dawn of the commercial internet back in the late 90s, 25 years, it's hard to think that any job really hasn't changed as a result of the founding of the internet. I suspect AI is going to do something pretty similar to that, maybe do it in about half the amount of time. So we expect it's going to be pretty profound in what it does, and of course starting to work pretty aggressively with our employees around preparing for that, teaching them about it, thinking about how we restructure the business to take advantage of it as well.
You are a company that makes huge capital expenditures. You know a lot about laying fiber in the ground and everything else. I'm curious, when you look at just the amount of money that's going into data centers, AI data centers around the country and around the world. There was a piece in the Wall Street Journal, heard on the street, just talking about the amount of leverage that folks are needing to use, the amount of cost, the question about whether the customers even have the money, and some people even comparing it to the late 90s in terms of some of those companies that ultimately struggled. And I'm curious what you think about that today.
Well, it seems to me that the announcements maybe are outstripping what we might actually see, at least in the near term. Certainly, when you look at the rate and pace of power evolution and you just kind of ask yourself the question, how much power is going to get built in a period of time to support that much infrastructure, one might want to handicap it a little bit lower than what we've seen in media statements around what people are investing. But having said that, there is a definitive trend and shift that's going on, and in our case, we want to participate in that to ensure that we can handle the bits and move them around. We're doing that in a way, I don't have the same dynamic in how I think about my business and somebody who has to commit to building an infrastructure like a data center, but we're being very specific and deliberate about how we do things. The way we build capacity in our network, we can build a small amount of capacity today and leave a bunch of it dormant for a period of time without a lot of incremental capital to do that. And I think we're being pretty smart about how we're deploying it.
I know that you're at a Ford event and you partnered with Ford. I know one of the things you're trying to do is create more sort of Wi-Fi hotspots that are effectively that the cars can access. What does that look like over time in your mind?
Well, I think in this case, with what Ford is attempting to do here, we all know that software is driving so much of what we do today in virtually every job. And we just talked about how the internet has changed how we order work and what we do. AI is going to have the same dynamic. And so even if you're in a key job like somebody who works in our company that does trenching or climbs poles to put fiber in, they're digitized jobs. They get mapping and cartography and things like that they have to do their job today. That's different than what they did, 10 years ago. And as a result of that, software that's out near a worker has to be connected. It has to have infrastructure that allows that software to go back and get to the cloud and get to the great capabilities of AI to even make that job more interesting and more effective. And I think that's where we partner with a company like Ford. Cars are really platforms for running software moving forward, and trucks and vehicles, and how people get access to information to do their jobs more productively. We want to be the capillaries that ultimately get that data out there. If they're in car manufacturing, we're in bit manufacturing, and our job is to make sure that there's plenty of bandwidth out of the places that people need to do this kind of work.
I know you're in a quiet period, so I don't know if you can answer this question. You can say pass if you want, but I think folks who are fascinated by what Apple's doing and the new iPhone are very curious about how that phone is selling. Can you give us any guidance as to what's happening with all of these new thin phones and the Pros and everything else?
I think Apple's probably in the best position to talk about how their phones are selling, given that they move them through so many distribution channels. I will refer back to other public statements we've made, Andrew, which, we've clearly said that the quarter is consistent with what many of our expectations have been, and we're satisfied with how the business is performing right now. And so within that context, that certainly there are iPhones and other devices from other manufacturers that get attached to that activity.
So far, we've been talking about communications on the ground. I noticed communications in the air. You're enabling free Wi-Fi on American Airlines starting in 2026. How's that going to work?
Well, look, we started, and I've said it many times, our job is to make sure that customers can get on the internet whenever they want to get on the internet. And when we start talking about converged services, putting wireless and fixed broadband together, it's about making it easier for customers to get up in the morning, talk to one company, and get on the internet. Well, when somebody gets in an airplane, they want to get on the internet. When somebody goes to a hotel room, they just want to get on the internet. And so our job at AT&T is to work within the construct of the industry to make sure that we can assemble all the ways to get on the internet and represent those back to our customers in a very straightforward and simple fashion, so that that job is easier for them and they don't have to worry about it. And getting on an airplane and our partnership with American Airlines is a great opportunity for us not to only showcase our brand, but also American Airlines brand, work together with our joint customers to ensure that we make that easier for them. The American likes that for their customers to get on airplanes. We like it for our customers wherever they go, and we're going to find more ways to do that, including what we do with satellite services and covering dead spots.